Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another rendition of Berkflow's Pivot Ready Live. I'm Wesley, head of services for Berkflow, and as always, I'm joined by the beautiful Amy, who runs our operations. Um, Firstly, I want to ask you guys if you have any questions or anything like that. This is a live chat. We do like engaging with you guys in conversation. For the regular listeners, we always appreciate you guys. Please feel free to drop a comment. Yep, Amy, what have we got on for today?
Well, we are going to discuss what we refer to as success indicators today. But before we jump into that, um, just a random question that I have been thinking about and contemplating, and I want to get your take on it. But what do you think is the biggest challenge facing CEOs today?
Man, how much time have you got?
You have 5 minutes, Wesley.
Okay, 5 minute rendition. Biggest challenge of CEOs today is finding people that one carry the same vision you do. You know, depending on the company. So I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, the workforce doesn't have drive," or we can't find good people. Um, I was in conversation earlier today with somebody, and they have this opening in their company, and I'm like, "How do you guys advertise the openings in your company?" It's like, "No, we stick it up on a billboard, next to the canteen." I'm like, "Yeah, so it's the sign that says, 'Please wash your hands after using the bathroom.'" Um, People are not inspired, so I think the challenge with that CEOs have is, how do I inspire the people that I have, because then it's, if you're the owner slash CEO, they're not as committed as you are to the success of the company. They're committed to their own success, and we want to believe that the people we have around us are equally committed, but there's a whole myriad of things that if you make a promise, it's got to come through. If the business struggles, there's no blaming other people, it's helping people. So there's a myriad of things that I think CEOs are challenged with. And the other thing that I think is very difficult for CEOs is owner operator businesses. Is, am I the CEO with owner authority, and am I truly allowing myself to show up as CEO, or am I owner with a bunch of people that work for me? Because I don't know about you, but very few business owners want to hear, "Hey, I think you're a bad CEO." Because very few business owners will be honest enough to say, "I actually never started this company because I wanted the title of CEO. I wanted time and money freedom. And I think the title of CEO is going to give me that." But the spin-off of that is the company actually needs a strong CEO to show up. If you're a 2, 5, 10, 20, $50 million company, it doesn't matter. There's always a strong leader at the helm. And the business owner started the business for the benefit of time and money freedom. The CEO is there to make that a possibility. And I think somewhere along the line, somewhere along the road, those two lines get blurred.
That's interesting. Good job. We were well under 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. I live for good jobs, but thank you. I feel like I'm getting a treat. So, I wish I had more time, but a lot of, if the market changes, if the market shifts, if opportunities come your way, there's always things that potentially can derail a business owner from being the true CEO. Because the business owner thinks, "Hey, I'm building my personal wealth." The CEO says, "I am making this company successful."
So let me ask this question. Well, it's really the same question in a different way, but what do you think the biggest challenges to a manager, or like call it a C-suite or executive leader, or I mean anybody in that, they're not the CEO, they're not the owner, they're not a business owner, they're just in that where they're invested, but what is the challenge that you think they're facing right now?
I think a couple of things comes to mind, but one of them is, do they truly have autonomy to influence success? Or are we just asking them, hey, I've got this bad model, I need you to continue doing this at a better version? So, are we asking them to just doing more of the bad habits, thinking that's going to make us successful? And two, not knowing how big their sandbox is, what authority and autonomy they have to influence the environment without the owner reaching over them and saying, hey, I want to be involved with this, I want to be involved with this. So and lastly, it's having spoken to so many clients on these strat sessions and stuff. They have tasks that they assign to managers or C-suite or whatever you want to call it. They have tasks associated with that, but very unclear success indicators on how am I actually going to know that this person is a good manager, leader, divisional leader, director, whatever the title is I don't know what's going to make them successful. And they think, well, I'll just apply the same methodology as what I do at the technician. Technician goes out, does a job, comes back, and I bill for that. And then it's very clear, semi-clear at the CEO level because the company's growing, because it's kind of the only KPI that we've put down to paper. And in the middle, these guys are just going to be like my catch-all pot stirrers to make sure that the pot keeps stirring. And you have to have a higher level of clarity around the expectation on who lives in what role and what their responsibilities are and how you're going to know that they are successful. As I said this last week in a training as well, and it's not my saying by all means, is if all I have as a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if that's the mentality that I have as a leader, well, all I have is technicians at the bottom. All my leaders just have to have higher technician mindset. So think transactionally, approach it transactionally, pay the people transactionally, create opportunity transactionally. Because that's the only thing that I know how to do is treat people either like a technician or a high-level technician. True talent at the management or that C-suite level, they're interested in true opportunity, not just for themselves, but can they drive opportunity for the people that report to them, the field techs, the field managers. And as much as the CEO is responsible for making a strong executive team, the executive team replicates that into the teams that they lead. And yes, that technician, can I give you a path of development? Is there trajectory? Is there a future? Is there some sort of development? Am I investing in you as a person? Do I know what's important to you? All those things become evident. And a technician, you can't just go technician, oh, I need you to be a higher level technician. Or you were a good technician, therefore you're going to be a good manager. Because technicians exchange skill, washing a window, cleaning a driveway, installing a solar panel, whatever it is. The manager needs a different skill set. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a good technician is going to make a good manager.
So I'm processing this as you're speaking, and we have a lot of conversations about getting to know people. We just came off of a call where we were talking about defining the role and defining the expectations before you make the hire. And I actually had this conversation with my assistant yesterday in terms of like, okay, was she exactly the person that I wanted to fill that role before I hired her? No. But when she came along, weighing the pros and cons of like, is she qualified? Is she what I need? And also, can I adapt to working with her in the best way possible? Like, that's it. So at what point, because we hear a lot about like the workforce crisis and lack of people and all of these things, like how do you weigh those odds of like, hey, I need somebody to show up in my world that is super fast paced and autonomous, but yet that person's not landing on my doorstep?
So it starts by one, having clarity around what it is that you're looking for. And then secondly, you can find the right person and not create the environment for them to succeed in, and they will leave. So there's two parts to that. One is finding that person. And when we say finding that person, is look for strengths to motivate. Skills is something that we can teach. And if people say, oh no, you can't learn a skill, or people are just naturally gifted. 2-year-old, 1-year olds can't walk, 2-year olds can walk. They've mastered the skill of walking. At some point my kid masters the skill of talking, and he hasn't kept quiet since. So skill is one of those things that we can always transfer skill, but finding the natural innate strengths to motivate is one part of that, and the other part of that is creating the environment to utilize those strengths. And I see this a lot when I sit in strat sessions with clients, or some of my coaching clients. They hire a good person, the right person, and then they forego making sure that the environment celebrates the wins. And then that person, the immediate thing that they do is they shut off, and they're like, well, just tell me your bad habits and I'll just do your bad habits, and we'll just have more of the bad habits that we've always done. And then to ourselves, we say, oh, well, I just need to go find the right hire again. And are we truthfully saying, I'm truly making a good hire? Not because I fell in love with a candidate, not because my wife wants me to hire a brother. Who's the right person? If I see them, can I identify them? And secondly, am I creating the right environment for them to succeed in? Because it's as demotivating as it is to be in the right position with the wrong motivation, as what it is finding the wrong person for the right position.
Yeah. So I was doing some reading and they were talking about this. We're in this transition of like management used to be a, what they call it, control, something in control environment. And its management is turning into more of a leadership environment. And I mean, obviously, I work for Bergflow. I 100% believe everything that we teach. But I'm also kind of experiencing that as the workforce in general goes through this kind of transition, people are also going through this transition where if I come and interview with you, Wesley, and you're talking about opportunities and you're talking about this great culture and all of these things, like I'm totally buying into it. But also 3 months down the road, I'm still used to working in an environment where they're telling me what to do and they're micromanaging me and I'm just showing up, and so there's I kind of am starting to recognize that we're in this transitionary period as leadership. And whether you're a business owner, whether you're that kind of middle management level or whatever it is, when you're taking all of these new approaches to hiring, getting them hired is one thing, and then picking up and continuing that. And there's like these clashes of, hey, you told me you wanted to be autonomous, but now when the pressure comes with the autonomy, that's uncomfortable for all of us. And I don't know, I just think it's an interesting dynamic that's kind of playing out and a new challenge that we have to recognize and be aware of as well.
And it's a new challenge, but it's an old story. In as much as when a individual starts a company, they start the company to be a business owner. And through this journey, they end up as CEO, divisional leader, or something like that. And I've got some clients that have built very successful companies, and they now have the time and money freedom. They're like, oh my gosh, what now? I've worked myself out of a job, and I now am a successful business owner, and I'm semi-depressed. Because a lot of times what the environment around us changes, and we were attracted to the opportunity of building something from nothing. Well, let me tell you my story. I started with a bucket and a rag, and today I own a $5 million window cleaning. We like the hero. We were our own hero in our story. The thing that I'm seeing, which is the same story playing over just in a different battle, is people today, specifically on the younger workforce, there seems to be this disparity between, well, I saw my dad work his backside off to grow his company, as a baby boomer. I don't want that, but I also don't want somebody to tell me what to do. So therefore, I'm constantly in this looking for mindset. I'm looking for purpose. I'm looking for clarity. I'm looking for direction. And I describe it in my way. I describe it as living someone else's life. You have to understand, 50 years ago, I was doing some research. When Henry Ford first designed the automobile, he said you can have this car in any color except provided that it's black. And then they made the car so good that people are going to stop buying these cars. So the first thing that they did is, it's called intentional obsolescence. Intentional obsolescence is, then they said, well, let's paint them some other colors. And then it's like, well, that's a new marketing strategy. And then they realized, well, we can't make them that. It's like a light bulb. If you make a light bulb that lasts forever, nobody's going to buy them. So if I truly solve the problem, I don't have a problem to solve anymore. So these business owners, they get into this mindset of, I want to hire good people, but if I hire people that are better than me, they're going to replace me. So I'm going to create the environment where they have autonomy, but I'm going to say to them, hey, come in. This is the autonomy that I have available. And then you step up. It's like, no, I don't want you to have that autonomy. I don't want you to fix the problem, because then I don't have a problem to fix myself, because I don't have a purpose, because my purpose was fixing my problem. And
you also said it. If as a workforce, as an employee, I don't want somebody to tell me what to do, but I want direction.
And that's true. And there's many studies. A company that I won't mention because apparently I mentioned them too much, is 70% of the workforce, they want their leader to be a coach. They want them to lead them to success, not micromanage them to success. And are you truly leading me? Are you making me a better person? Or am I living someone else's, telling someone else's story? You know what? I went to work 40 years. I got a 401k. I retired. And I hope that I live longer, not as long as what my money is, so that at least I leave something for my kids. And history is full of that. Good and bad, the American dream. It's great because a lot of people bought into that, but the American dream has changed a little bit. It's not the white picket fence life anymore. Because the white picket fence, you didn't need a coach. You didn't need a guide. You were just happy with what you had. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, 50 years ago, they introduced, when Henry Ford sold cars, they introduced color. 50 years ago, they started saying intentional obsolescence, where stuff doesn't last that long. Today, you have social media that influences people. And it's like, well, I need to have the golden watch. I need to have the bigger rings. I need to, post pictures of my knees on a beach. And I'm like, I don't know when that became a big thing, but apparently everybody has to post a picture of their holiday with their knees looking at the ocean. And that becomes my motivation. So there's nothing behind that. And then people step into the work environment and they want purpose. It's very easy to say, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, the basic needs are met. Community stuff is this frivolous social media association. And then self-actualization is right at the top. And I think a lot of people strive to get to self-actualization. I mean, if you can go on any platform anywhere, if there's one, there's 100 self-help books. 7 steps to improve your life, 12 steps to $1 million, 15 steps to becoming a billionaire in 2023. YouTube, everywhere is littered with these quick, rich things because that's what was sold to people. And now we're seeing people saying, you know what? It's not important to me anymore. But there isn't a new thing for them to grasp onto. So they're foregoing the song that they've always listened. Hey, get rich quick, get a career, go to college, get into debt with, student debt, da, 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 da. Now the workforce or the work environment has changed where I can make money sitting at home as a YouTuber. So being successful financial is actually not a motivation for me anymore. Because it's so easy, I can just do it on YouTube. So people cling to this facade of success, of golden chains and cars and holidays and these things. And therefore, there's those who don't make it on YouTube. Unfortunately, there's 1 or 2 people in the world who hasn't made it on YouTube. They come to the work with that same demand. It's like, you know what? I want to live a life of purpose. I want my leader to make me better. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better spouse. I want to be a better person. And that's why a lot of companies is, do we do what we do at our work? Does it actually make a difference in society? Are we reducing carbon credits? Are we helping, disadvantaged people? People take up these causes because they want to be associated with something that's of meaning.
So, okay, you said, I don't remember what exactly it was, but the statistics you said earlier, you talked about people want their leader to be a coach or a guide.
70%, yeah.
Okay, so, and I think we've talked about this before. Like I used to be a personal trainer, and 90% of being a personal trainer is being a psychologist and overcoming mental things and that's just the reality of like the mind controls the body, right? So, yeah. But there's also the reality of if you come to me and say you want to lose 20 pounds, but you don't ever want to be sore and you don't ever want to sweat and you don't want to give up your Twinkies, and you're going to pay me to tell you how to lose 20 pounds, like at some point I'm going to have to say like, hey, tough love, you're going to have to sweat a little bit to lose 20 pounds, right? Like there has to be a metric or a measurement of accountability. And I'm a huge college football fan, and they talk a lot about leadership on teams. Well, I don't remember what team I was watching last weekend, and they said the quarterback got so sick of his team not showing up for him, he made them run sprint drills in practice that week. It was the quarterback. The coaches didn't say a word. So they respect him for taking that role of leadership, and they're willing to pay the repercussions to have that accountability in their life. And I think as leaders, and this is a little bit what we said we were going to talk about today too, but as leaders, we have to remember that accountability is not a negative thing. discipline is not a negative thing, but I don't know what the right word is, coming down harshly, being like overly negative about it is going to be perceived as negative, but providing accountability is not a negative thing. That is part of being a coach or a leader that people want in their life. And so we can dive into it now, but what we say as success indicators, which I love the fact that we use that term, is how are you going to be successful in this role? Let's have a conversation about, is that realistic? Do you feel like you can accomplish that? And then I'm going to hold you accountable to something that we agreed on. So talk a little bit about how you set that up and go about that.
So soapbox moment for 2 minutes is I'm rereading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and to illustrate why people are looking for a coach or a leader in the work environment is history teaches us right from the Egyptian days, there's a trigger and a reward, right? So if you do this job as a slave, you won't get beaten. And we've kind of become accustomed to these triggers that tells us, hey, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to struggle. I don't want to sleep alone. I don't want to have no purpose. I don't want to, live with my kids when I'm old and I haven't planned for it. There's all these negative rewards for triggers. And all the self-help books are trying to just motivate the positive rewards. It's trying to tell us, hey, just find a positive reward for this trigger. And what's become more evident, and it's not a new thing, this back to, Carl Jung. Carl Jung said, if you can influence the stuff that leads up to the trigger, the reward becomes affected by it. But people try and strong arm the trigger, the euphoria moment, the dopamine hit that we have in our brain, and try and reprogram their mind to say, trigger must just give me positive, even though the experience is bad. The fake it till you make it. Where people now are saying, I want a leader, I want a coach, I want somebody to influence the run up to the trigger so that the positive reward is automatic. And it requires us to take a step back where the influence that leads up to the trigger forms part of our peripheral vision, because we've always only looked at the reward. And then we realized, I actually need to look at the trigger that causes this. It's like, well, let me take a step back. Actually, I have the ability to influence the stuff that brings this trigger that goes there. So it is clarity. And for me, that is what a business leader or somebody in a leadership role in the company, that's their role, is help that person go from what is your intended reward? What is the trigger that's going to give you that reward? What is it that you need to do that leads up to that? I will focus on this. I cannot be symptomatic at the back end and say to you, oh, I know you didn't hit your goal. Better luck next time. Or you know what? You didn't hit your goal. You're not getting your bonus. Because I was literally talking to a business owner today. Some businesses, they reward people during the peak season by giving them a show up bonus. If you show up to the work that I'm already paying you to do, I'm going to give you a bonus. So you're just incentivizing more bad behavior, because those people are holding you hostage at any given time. If I don't show up, you don't make money. So last year you paid me $100 a day or $100 a week show up bonus. This year I want $200. But there are certain things around that negative reward that if we just take a step back, we can say, okay, I can influence the stuff. And I think that's what society is looking for. That's what people are looking for, is the freedom or the ability to influence the precursor to that trigger. To your point.
Let's play this out in real life though. So give me like a tangible real life example of what the reward would be.
So it depends on what. So everybody will set a reward. In the book they use running as an example. Um,
Okay, so let's say that the reward is if you get 20 new clients this month, you get a $20,000 bonus. Like, let's just call that the reward. So the reward is the bonus, correct?
mm.
Okay, so the trigger, what you're referring to as the trigger, is that the goal? Is that the getting the clients?
So the goal is, the reward is $20,000, right? In your example, I'm getting a $20,000 bonus. By the way, I'm holding you to that. This is live. It's on. Everybody's heard that Amy said she's paying me $20,000 bonus.
You got 30 days to get 20 clients, man.
Okay, cool. So if that's
everybody help Wesley out with his goal.
If that's the reward, the trigger is, hey, every time I sign a client, that's the trigger. Not when I sign the 20th client, every time I sign a client.
Okay.
That's how you condition your mind to say, because a lot of people say when you hit the 20th client, you're going to get the reward. And I hit 18 and I'm like, or you know what? I don't know what it's going to take. You have to program your mind to say, every time I sign a client, there's a dopamine hit. Your brain releases dopamine as a chemical, and I feel like I'm making progress. What I need to do leading up to that is say, I can influence this. I can influence the trigger. I can decide this is my trigger. So in the book, they use the example of running. And they say, if you want to run, if you're running for a marathon, it just means that you've got this goal, you run, it's done. So what? And you see this a lot with people that get married. They plan for 12 months and they have their wedding day. And then, so if you want to be a runner, you put out your running clothes the night before. Because as you take your shoes and your running gear out, that's the trigger in your mind registers the running process has started. So the dopamine happens there. Tomorrow when you get up, the reward is I get to go and run because I took my stuff out the night before. So I'm just fulfilling the obligation towards this dopamine trigger that I've already had. Do that enough, it becomes muscle memory. Do that enough with enough purpose around different aspects of your life, then you reward yourself, or the rewards become evident because of the triggers. And a lot of people want to go from straight work to reward, and they don't identify certain triggers. So I call it payday euphoria. Nobody gets excited on the day when they get paid. They get excited 2 days before they get paid, specifically like commission earners. And then your pay hits your bank account, and your landlord takes that, and the insurance takes that, and this and that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that's all I got left. So the euphoria actually happens, the trigger, the dopamine happens before that. And that's if you live a very limited mindset of, I just need enough money to survive this week. That means I'm only going to plan my success for this week. That's why when I deal with business owners, I've got to say, imagine you're not getting a salary out your business. You're only getting dividends once a quarter. That dopamine hit for you is only going to happen once a quarter, which means you're going to have to stretch yourself to say, I'm not working on my orders for next week. I'm not working on hiring people so that I have enough technicians for next week. I'm building systems so that I know I can take on more business next quarter. So because if I do that, I'm going to get paid through dividends only. So the first time I declare dividends as a 1% or a 2% or a 5%, those are my triggers. 5% of 100 is not a lot, but 5% of 10 million is a hell of a lot. But the only way to get to that is, one, develop a discipline around taking your reward in a certain way. Attach that to a trigger. And that's the difference between saying I am identifying the ceiling and I'm going to break through it, or I'm just going to do more of the same and eventually persistence is going to wear through the ceiling, and it doesn't.
So, from a leadership perspective, let's go back to our sales example. You're saying selling one client is the trigger. The reward is the $20,000 bonus, and the goal is 20 clients. So, if I'm the leader in this example, I can actually influence the trigger because you can release the dopamine by dictating that the trigger is a positive response. So, in
Yeah.
other words, if I tell you you have to sell 20 clients this month and I don't acknowledge you until you've reached 20, there's not a positive trigger to each individual client. But if you say, hey, I got one client, we're one closer to the goal, and I acknowledge it and reward that, then you're getting the dopamine hit. And the dopamine hit is going to get bigger and stronger the closer you get to the goal.
And I'll give you a prime example. That's why I say, you know, this is not a new battle. We're just reliving this. It's not a new war. We're just reliving this battle, however you want to put it. Um, you remember when you were in kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
and if you remembered if you remembered the teacher's birthday, you got a little gold star. If you remember to tell your mom that there's a field trip day tomorrow, you get a gold star. So at that level, we're programming kids to be um, focused on positive rewards. Yet in the workplace, we step in and say, you do what I tell you to do or you get fired. And internally, they create this turmoil to say, I want an environment that celebrates my wins. So, yes, a 5-year-old doesn't necessarily know how to celebrate. So, a little gold star for them works. They also don't know their strengths as well as somebody in the work environment. So, if I know, hey, this is how Amy likes to be rewarded, if I know these are trigger events, and I'll give you the most basic psychological version of this is word association. If I speak to you and your behavior responds very positively to the word I, you, this, so direct to you. You don't consciously respond to that word. You subconsciously respond to that word. If you're somebody that doesn't like conflict, you're subconsciously going to associate with certain words. So even at a subconscious level, our brains are programmed for positive response on a trigger. What we're looking for is saying, can I influence what those triggers are? That's the job of a leader, is I need to find out what are those things that you don't know what triggers. It might be not saying you, but we. It's like the reward is I feel part of a team by saying, hey, we need to find a solution. And I've tried that with you many times. And then you always push back and say, no, Wesley, that is a you problem. And that's fine. That's because that's who you are. That's who you are. I don't need the we, but it sometimes I just test some of the stuff and then I'll get the exact response which I'm seeing with other people. So at every level of our life, there's an element of saying, I want somebody to help me find my triggers. And the nice thing is, if it's strength-based approach, it's like, hey, I identified this strength. You're really good at it. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody likes to hear and talk about themselves. So I come from a religious background, but if and that's why people go to these crystal ball people. They want somebody to tell them about themselves. I want somebody to have a prophetic word for me. I want somebody to speak over to my in my life. I want to be the first to buy this self-help book. I want to unlock this big secret of life. And we live in this constant pursuit of, I just need to figure out my triggers. What's going to make me move? And
Well, and I want to add to that because I walked around for a long time, like and I really, to some extent, don't really care to hear the word good job. Like, I don't, it doesn't phase me as much. But the one thing that I'm learning is everybody has ceilings in their lives. Everybody's going to reach a point of like, hey, I can do this really naturally. And now I have to learn new skills and new develop and all of these things. The closer I get to those ceilings, the more I need positive triggers to break through those ceilings. So if I'm down here and I'm functioning at a level of like, hey, this is just skating through and I'm not being challenged, then I don't, if you ever tell me good job, I wouldn't care. But the more I'm butting up against the ceiling of like, dang, I'm having to learn something new, I'm having to adapt and change and grow, the more I need somebody to encourage me through that. And so it comes back to like, are you challenging people? And then you can't just drive and drive and drive and challenge. You have to recognize that the harder you challenge, the more reward they need in a manner that is specific to them as well.
so I'll give you an example of how I do this in our relationship, my working relationship with you. Is I can build a system. Is it a great system? No. Is it a system? Yes. Right? In my mind, it is a system. But what I do is I say, Amy, I know you're really good at building systems. And you know that I'm not buttering you up when I say that. Is sometimes I consciously withhold my ability to do something. One, because I'm probably lazy. And two, I know that there's somebody better. But I use that as an opportunity to give positive affirmation to you. So telling you, hey, Amy, great job on the system. You're like, doesn't bother me. But if I say, hey, Amy, you're really good at building systems, and you're not somebody that likes public praise. But even in a public environment, if I say that to you, subconsciously, your mind realize, shit, yeah, I'm good at building systems. So the next time Wesley's going to ask me to do something half-assed, I'm going to push back. Because all I'm doing is I'm motivating that trigger in your mind that says good systems give good results. That's the trigger I'm looking to motivate. So all I'm doing is, even in a public environment that you don't like, celebrating something that you're naturally good at, the reward that I get, the reward that you get is a better system.
Well, because for me, the reward is the results. Like, I'm a very results driven person. And so that is the reward for me. So you're influencing the trigger to get the reward, which is not necessarily like a tangible, like measurable thing.
Yeah.
But it is a thing.
It is a
So,
thing. And, that's true for, for those who have kids. It's the same, I know you've got a beautiful dog and your husband. There are many instances in our life where we subconsciously do this. And for me, true leadership is bringing that into the consciousness for you as a leader. Is I need to spend time to know what's going to be positive triggers for you. If I just come to you and say, Amy, you have to do this, you're like, okay, I've done it. There's no reward because the only thing that you can do is comply or fight me on it and say why it's not a good idea. So compliance doesn't give me the reward. Nobody likes compliance as a reward. But
people do like conflict as a reward.
Yes. But some people like conflict as a reward because the motivation for them is different.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, as a leader, I'm not your leader. You're not my leader. We're, here to lead each other. And a true leader makes the people around them better. And I'm not as good as you are as an example in system building. Are you the best at system building? No. Are you the best between the two of us? Yes. And me saying that doesn't give you permission or authority to say, oh, you're building a bad system. It gauges the relationship, and I know I need to affirm those positive behaviors, those strengths within you. That makes me a good leader. I don't have to be in front of you. I can lead at your level and make you better by saying, hey, Amy, I know that you're better at building systems. Even if sometimes I have to stretch you outside of your comfort zone to say, hey, Amy, I need you to talk to this person about building systems. Not your favorite thing to do. But the subconscious currency that I'm spending is the recognition that you're getting for being able to do something. And you then manifest that in your own life by saying, hey, I want to drive this to. So it manifests completion for you even harder. Everybody says I'm a system builder. Everybody's asking me these questions around systems. I better make sure that I deliver systems. So if we didn't have a good relate, I would just say, damn, Amy's getting more stubborn day, as the day goes by. But you're now saying, I want that reward for myself. I've had the dopamine. I owe myself the reward. The reward is completion. So I can't influence the reward. Nobody can. I can't influence the things that reward you. I can influence the things that identifies and leads up to your triggers. And that for me is what, going full circle back to our discussion, what is it that people want from a leader? What is it that they want from a coach in a work environment? Is somebody that's willing to do the work there so that the positive triggers automatically just push the right buttons. Well, you want this from your husband as well. You just want him to push your right buttons. Does he sometimes with his fat fingers push the wrong buttons? Yes. But this entire journey called life and living with people and coexisting on earth is, I don't know what are your good and bad buttons. But I'm committed to the journey as your spouse to say, I want to learn which are your good buttons to press. The same for a work environment. I want to know how to get the best out of you, not change you, not make you who you are. I want to make you the best version of who you are. Amy, do you want to? I've got this opportunity at my company where I'm committed to that. Do you want to come work at my company? Yes. Nowhere did we talk about money. Nowhere did we talk about how much leave you get. None of that stuff. We spoke about that, which is truly important to you, which is the same thing that's true for everybody. Mm-hmm. Even a business owner wants the reward. The reward is time and money freedom. The trigger is when you look at your calendar and say, I'm only working 5 hours a week. So I can't say that's all I'm going to do. I have to build a team, a Wesley and an Amy, or a John and a Tom and a whoever, to influence the stuff that's going to make my trigger a reality. Which means when I look at my calendar and I only see 5 meetings for this week, the dopamine hits say, I have a good team. So the reward for me is time and money freedom. So the work doesn't happen at the trigger point into the reward. It happens up to the trigger point.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think, so let's do this like that. We'll continue this conversation next week and we'll dive a little bit more into the actual success indicators and defining this, because the reality is that's where the work is, but you can't measure whether your work is successful or not if it's not measurable, right? So you have to know, like, what everything we talked about, it really was about success indicators, because you have to know as a leader of an employee that that's where you have to put in the work to get the results. And so next week we'll go more into what do the results look like.
Yeah, so for me, the reason why I wanted to precursor this conversation, or this topic with this conversation, is if all you're doing is saying, oh, I need you to sell 20 deals, that's it. Or, 20 deals and you get your 20,000. I don't understand why it's important to you. Being able to connect the motivation, why it's important to you, I don't have to motivate it. Mm-hmm. And the only option you have, if I don't understand that, is compliance or non-compliance. Did you make it or did you not make it? So if I can do this work the lead up work, then I can get into the habit of, hey, what are the KPIs? What are going to show you that we're doing a good job? I can find 20 clients tomorrow, I promise you. The success indicator for me is, can I find 20 good clients? So that's where the conversation of true leadership shows up. If you're just saying find 20 clients, I will find 20 burn clients.
Well, and I think also this is where kind of what we talked about in the beginning, where we're in this transitional period of, um, for lack of a better way of saying it, like we're getting more in tune with people, which becomes more in tune with emotions. And at some point, we have to have a black and white. Are we successful or are we not? Because if we don't define that standard, it just becomes, hey, Wesley feels like he's being successful because he delivered me 5 clients. And I feel like he's not being successful because we talked about 20. And so it's I want to make you feel good to motivate you to reach the trigger, but I can't base the decisions based off of your feelings also. And so defining those by the numbers and then creating that is a standard is super important part of the process. And again, if you're looking for a coach, that's part of a coach's responsibility, right? Is like, here's the standard, here's what the goal is, here's where the accountability comes in, and now we're going to reach that as well.
Yeah. And then, so numbers are the language of business. And before you can get to a traditional penal system of compliance, non-compliance to the numbers, you need to understand the motivators that's going to drive people towards those numbers in a nutshell. So what I want to invite you guys is 2 things. One, we've got a business planning clinic coming up December 15th. If you guys are interested in attending that, you're welcome to reach out to us at the email address. Contact at Bergflow. Sorry, I almost said team at Bergflow, but that's not it. Contact at bergflow.com. You're welcome to reach out to us at that email address. We'll gladly send you the offer, what that looks like. It's a 1-day virtual training that helps you set goals for 2023. Not just, I want to grow my business to $1 million. Is what are you going to do for the year? How are you going to implement what in what quarter? How are you going to track that? What success indicators look like for those numbers? And what are the activities that's going to yield the results?
So and also just watch our website. I'll have more information up by the end of the week on our website as well. So
absolutely. Thank you, Amy. And then we also have a training coming up this week. If you guys want to learn how to hire and properly interview people, I've got a training that I'm hosting this week, and a lot of companies say to me, "Oh, what is the hiring process?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's $10 at Starbucks, 30 minutes, send them an offer. That's it." If that's your hiring process, then you're going to end up with people that could have worked at a fast food place. They're just there for the money. And when I show up with a higher paycheck, I'm just going to buy your people. If you want people to buy into the vision, is you need to spend time understanding their vision. So all in a nutshell, this week I've got a 2-day training, Thursday and Friday. If you guys are interested in attending that, the link is bergflow.com/talent acquisition systems. It's on the page. You guys are welcome to jump in. Who is it for? Anybody that needs to grow or hire. If you are looking to hire a manager, a technician, anybody in your business, if you want to be serious about retaining talent, you have to be serious about how you bring talent on. And if the simple approach is, I'm just going to pay them more, eventually you'll get into a position where you can't afford them, because there's always somebody with a bigger wallet. There's always somebody with VC capital behind them, startup, roll-ups. There's all these things that you always battle. Get to know their vision and get to know your vision and bring those two in alignment. So that's what I'll be training this week. If you guys are interested. We also offer strat sessions, complimentary 1-hour strat session. So the email again, contact@bergflow.com. If you guys want to schedule a strategy session with me or one of the guides, we'll gladly review your business, see where you're stuck, what are some of the bottlenecks that you're experiencing. That is it. Amy, did I miss anything?
Nope. I think you can also always visit bergflow.com for most of this information as well. So
that is very true. You can also just visit bergflow.com. Most of the information is there. Amy is doing a fantastic job of making that possible for you guys. Amy, thank you for hosting. Thank you for being on the call. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys. See you